Hello YouTube, I am back with the video where I will try to paint one of the examples from this book, the Watercolor Flower Artist Bible. This book was edited by Claire Wade Brown. It has several examples of paintings from different artists and very short instructions on how to draw flowers. They're not very detailed. They're very pretty. And you have all the flowers in this book are organized by color, so I thought that would be interesting for me to swatch my colors, learn about that, while also learning about different shapes that the flowers have, different details that makes each flower unique. Also, I see here with this rock rose, they also have some techniques like using some plastic foil wrap to create texture. I haven't read the book in entirely, only maybe the beginning of it, and I just went over all the flowers and I said, oh, I would like to see if I can paint all of them. How long would that take me? And yeah, just do a really crazy busy challenge just for the sake of it, see if I can do it. I'll try to make videos with all this. My video skills are not the best. I'll see if I want to improve on that, on if I'll have time to do it. So far I painted, this was the first flower in the book, the daylily. It took me about an hour, I'll say, all in all, with the drawing, the lining, and I kept an inventory of the color I use on the side. I tried to write the name of the flower and the date. I don't have a video of this one, and I thought of redoing it, but then there's plenty of flowers here. So today's video I'm going to try and focus on the second flower, this Rosa Moesi, that's how you pronounce it. And as you can see here, the instructions are very simple, very basic. I'm not going to use any masking fluid just for the sake of time. And the colors they suggest, I might use whatever I have on hand. I'm planning to use the Nice's Artist Watercolor paints and a palette I put together of all sorts of paints, Daniel Smith, and I think I have a Sennelier here and a few Winsor & Newton. So without further ado, let's start drawing. So I think the drawing part is the most intimidating, because drawing is not one of my strong skills, and I always have to pay attention of my proportions. The first mark is kind of hard to make. Once you put that first line on the paper, I feel like the rest comes really easy. The book, the examples you have are kind of small, so I have sometimes to improvise and enlarge the drawing so it fills my page. This paper I'm using is the Canson XL watercolor paper. I have bought a lot of it, not knowing that cotton paper is the best for watercolors, and I plan to use it. So I thought this, since I'm mostly focusing on my drawing, and I'll probably do some line and wash, and I'm not sure where this challenge is going. I think it would be great for this kind of project. Surprisingly, I like how certain watercolors behave on it, how it separates. I think that's really, you can get some effects that you don't normally get on regular paper, on cotton paper. So for that, I decided just to explore. When drawing this kind of flowers, I try to kind of capture the essence of it. Like this one, just basic stuff. The center, it looks almost like a star. It has 5 petals, the basic shape of the petal, and then the greenery around it. I'm gonna pause it right here and continue to play with it, and I'll come back with the finished product. And now with my pencil sketch roughly finished, I'm gonna use one of these micron pens. I might use the 0.1. It's a black color, and I'm gonna line my drawing. And then I'll probably erase some of the pencil marks. I went a little hard on the lines, just because I had to kind of crop the drawing, the example, to fit on my paper, and some of these bottom lifts, they didn't quite fit in. I'm gonna try to pause it and come back and show you how it looks. So my sketches are lined with the black ink. What I've learned so far when creating these lines, it's better to have one uninterrupted line per shape. I don't know if you can see, if you kind of stop and pull the get the paint off the paper, you get kind of an unusual broken lines. I don't think there's anything wrong with it, it's just something I observed, and I don't think I quite like that. I prefer just one continuous line. And if you want to see some interesting flower lines, you can check out Aliona's I think it was July watercolor challenge, where she sketches all these freehand sketches all these flowers, and she uses beautiful color combinations. And also you can just skip this process altogether and do like a loose flowers. Irit is one of my favorite artists on YouTube, and I just love her art, her color choices, and hopefully one day that's kind of what I aspire to be able to do. But until then, I'm just gonna stick to this book and to line and wash. So this still being completed, I use an eraser and got most of the pencil marks. I have this eraser, it's pretty old and it's hardened, so I probably should invest in a kneaded eraser, because sometimes you can get this marks. I don't know if you can see them, they're pretty dark, but this is gonna be a red flower, so hopefully they're gonna be covered. And now let's move to the fun part, the colors. I'll see if I can talk and color at the same time. If not, just sit back and enjoy. One tip, if you have water near your workstation, make sure you have something with a lid. I got this mug from a friend and I love it, and I keep it here. It's been several times where I try to have water and then dip my brushes in it, in my drinking water. So just FYI. So I'm gonna start with the light wash, probably alizarin crimson or the red rose deep. That's Da Vinci color. It's in Denise's palette. That's probably one of my favorite cool reds. I have Daniel Smith quinacridone rose, and it's a pretty color. I like it, but after I tried this red rose deep, I like the brightness of this color a little more. So probably if I'm gonna look for another red rose, it's probably gonna be Da Vinci, just because of that brightness, that pinkiness. I'm using a Princeton Neptune brush, and it's a number round 6, and I should probably use a slightly larger brush, but I'll start with this and see where it goes. The flower in the book, it's a more warm red. I think they said they use bright red and permanent rose. I like to start with this cool red first, like an undertone. I've noticed with the warm reds, maybe I just haven't tried the right pigment yet, they lose their brightness, and although they get dark and intense in light wash, they seem kind of dull. And I'm not too particular about staying within the lines, especially since this is gonna be such a light wash. I might even use some splatters. On the previous drawing with the daylily, I try to be a little more constrained. I pay attention to the line, and I like the end product. It's just I needed more looseness. I think I prefer that. in my painting. And of course I have cats, so there's gonna be always a cat hair somewhere. So this is my first wash. Sometimes I think of letting it dry, but I'm impatient, so I'm just gonna try to get the dark red, and I'm gonna mix a little bit of let me see what this is. This is the Da Vinci Red. It's a PR254, and I'll show you in just a moment. It looks very nice and bright. I mix it with some this Rose Deep, but if I lay it on top of it, of this pink, it kind of shines through it. It keeps that vibrancy, but as it dries, it's gonna get a little duller. Also, another color I learned to love is the Perylene Maroon. Try to use it for the shade. Like if I need to create shade in a red flower. One thing I found it hard, and maybe because I'm new at watercolor, is the drying shift of this color in particular. It can be a little confusing because it looks so nice and bright, and then it kind of dulls down. And I think I have a sample right here. So this is the Perylene Maroon when it's dry, and this is when it's wet. Of course here it's mixed with the Red Rose Deep, so it's gonna be slightly lighter, a little more brighter. With flowers, it's important to create those light and shadow within the petals, and that would kind of give you the shape instead of just being flat. And kind of have to establish a light source. For that, I like to have a reference photo. I think that's always easy. But when I'm doing these sketches, I pretty much add the shadows wherever I think they're necessary, like around the bottom of the petals, on one side, probably on all the petals, to create a little more definition and interest. When it comes to painting petals, I like to have color variation, and I like to have certain details. And the way I kind of figure out to add details when I'm not sure if I should add them, I'll try to line them up when my petals are still wet. So you can see this paper, it's really easy to blot out areas where you don't want the color. For example, you can see this bottom petal, it's kind of plain, and I want to add a few lines, a few shadows. So I'll mix a little bit of the Perylene Maroon with my rose, and I added a touch of yellow, and this is the Hansa Yellow Deep, because I like a more warm yellow to my petals. So this is pretty wet, so my lines, if I wanted a line, it's not going to be a straight line with nice edges. It's going to bleed in, and sometimes I'll do that because it's very easy to correct if I don't like it, or if I don't feel like that's the spot for my detail. I can easily erase it or blend it in. You can see this part of the petal, it had less water, so it's drying out, and this side is going to have like a very hard edge. So I just added a little bit of water and try to blend out, because I don't want a hard edge right on that spot. I think this is probably the hardest thing in watercolor, just knowing when to apply color, how wet is the paper, looking at it based on the sheen. And also you see right here I have a puddle of water, so anything I put in here is just gonna fly everywhere. I can create that little area, and also a little bit here. That is something I'm still learning, and I think it's a lifelong process. Also the timing of drying time depends on the paper, on how much water you use, your ambient temperature. So just by looking at paper, I think with time you can eventually learn to estimate what to do, when to do. And this is the last stage of my drawing, where I add the smallest detail. They have these little stamens around the center of the flower, and I'm just using a jelly roll in white. I also added the shadow here around this, because red can only get so dark, even the darkest red. I like to mix a little bit of green in it, and you can get, because green is the complementary, you will get a nice dark red. In the original photo, this little dots here were tinted with yellow, and of course I could use either yellow pencil, and this is the Koh-i-Noor watercolor paint, and I can try and tint them, or I even have different gel pens with different colors, and I could possibly do that. But again, this is just a simple sketch just to practice, to get everything started. I liked how it turned out. Of course, I could have worked more, and also on different paper I could layer even more so I can get more definition, more depth to the flowers. For the leaves, I just put a simple wash with a bit of a variation with the green gold and ultramarine blue for the shadow part. Last thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna write around the border the colors I use and call it done. Hope you stay around, and I'll try and get the next video. It's gonna be the carnation. I'm not sure exactly when that's gonna be. Hopefully sooner rather than later. Thank you so much. Have a good day.